Welcome to Tales of History and Imagination. Eccentric Tales from History by Simone Whitlow. The Flannan Isles, sometimes referred to as the Seven Hunters, are a tiny group of islands on the outside of the Outer Hebrides, a string of islands in the north of Scotland. The group are named after the 7th century bishop of Killaloe and later saint St. Flannan, whose feast day was eerily close to the dates on this tale, December 18th. St. Flannan put a chapel on this otherwise uninhabited island in the 7th century. In 1899, the authorities put a lighthouse nearby. Uninhabited, hilly and rocky, covered only by grass. People generally had little to do with these islands. For centuries, shepherds would use the islands to store sheep away from poachers. They themselves never stayed overnight. Folklore warned of malevolent spirits on the islands. The lighthouse keepers were another case entirely. Until the house was automated in 1971, a crew of 3 lighthouse keepers were stationed at all times. On regular shifts, a 4th keeper was dropped off who would make the 150-foot climb to the cliff top, allowing a brief respite for one of his comrades. On Boxing Day 1900, Captain James Harvey docked to drop off lighthouse keeper Joseph Mor and return one of the others to the mainland. What the 2 men found was unexplained and disturbing. On reaching the island, sometimes called Eilean Mor, Harvey sounded the horn to alert the keepers of his arrival. After a lengthy silence, he shot off a flare, still to no avail. Harvey sent Mor to the island on a lifeboat. Having negated the steep cliffside and entered the lighthouse, Mor found a scene akin to that of the Mare Celeste. The lights were on, but no one was home. The door wide open, only 2 coats taken from the hangars. Had all 3 men got into the inhospitable winter weather, surely one of them would have half frozen to death. A half-eaten meal was said to have lay on the table, food having already gone mouldy. James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and William MacArthur had simply vanished. On returning to the boat, Captain Harvey mounted a search of the island, but nothing could be found of the 3 men. The authorities were contacted, and Superintendent of Lighthouses Robert Muirhead made his way to Eilean Mor the next day. That Duckett, Marshall, and MacArthur had all somehow fallen into the sea and drowned was most likely, but what Muirhead discovered gives an air of mystery to this tale. On checking the logbook, Muirhead found the following entries, recorded by Thomas Marshall. On 12th of December, a violent storm pummeled the island. Marshall noting, severe winds the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years. The tempest was so terrifying it broke head lighthouse keeper James Duckett, who had become struck mute by it. William MacArthur, by all accounts a hardened seafarer, spent the entire day weeping uncontrollably. The tempest raged the following day. Marshall simply notes the 3 men prayed for deliverance. Nothing is written at all on the 14th. On 15th December 1900, Thomas Marshall simply wrote, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." On the high cliff face, a crane was set up. Muirhead found its ropes unfastened, splayed out on the rocks below. Now logic states that most likely the lighthouse keepers were simply taken by a rogue wave while on the rocks. One of the men may have stayed in the lighthouse, and perhaps noticed the massive wave coming at his comrades. This would at least explain why one man ran out without his coat on. The odd thing was, there was no once-in-a-century storm on the days mentioned. A storm did hit the island on the 17th, though nothing as bad as the 3 experienced keepers described. Have they simply lost track of the days? While the fuzzy outlines of this tale make sense, 3 men somehow became disoriented and were washed out to sea. Maybe the real mystery is what sent these men into this spiral. Ergot poisoning? A gas leak? Mass hysteria combined with a long history of superstition surrounding the spooky, windswept isle. There is also the chance that this never really happened exactly like this. These details from the diary only emerged years and years later after all. But I can't conclude this tale without sharing one final tidbit. In the 7 decades following the disappearance of Duckett, Marshall, and MacArthur, many a lighthouse keeper had claimed, in the dead of night, to hear ghostly voices on the wind, whispering the names James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and William MacArthur. Thanks for listening. This has been Tales of History and Imagination. All episodes written and narrated by me, Simone Whitlow. All music, yours truly. Visit the show at historyandimagination.com. You can follow me on social media, links in the show notes, and get access to exclusive bonus content via my Patreon, also in the notes. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a like on your podcatcher of choice, and share the episode, as word of mouth is the best way to help shows like this grow. Love to see you back in 2 weeks' time for more tales of history and imagination.